Hey folks, I'm Vic Tesla and welcome to the shop. Today we're going to take a look at the Melbourne Tool Company planes, and specifically we're going to look at unboxing them and a couple of little tasks that you should do to get this plane working to its ultimate form. The first thing you're going to notice when you open up the box is that there's not an instruction manual. There is this card, however, and on the back is a QR code. And if you scan that QR code, you'll get access to the owner's manual, which will show you exactly what you need to do in case you have any trouble with the plane, or some tips to help set it up. So the nice thing about this particular packaging is it's got this closed cell foam that is going to cradle the plane, which keeps it safe. You may not like keeping boxes, however, holding onto this foam can be pretty handy because now this foam can get used inside a drawer or on a shelf or in a toolbox. So first things first, we're going to take the plane out of the foam. All right, and we can put that aside for now. You'll notice that your plane comes wrapped in some paper and there is oil on your plane. And so that oil is there in order to make sure that the plane arrives in good order with no rust. Okay, you don't need to hang on to this anymore. You can get rid of it. But for now, we're just going to leave it in place so that I don't get oil on my workbench. Some regular shop towel is all you really need to get this oil off of the plane. Okay, it's a very light coat of oil, so you don't have to worry too much. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start to remove some of the metal components. And as we're taking them off, we're just going to wipe down any of that oil. They do a really good job at making sure that this oil gets everywhere, and that's a good thing because we don't want our tools to rust. You can pop out the blade. Sometimes the adjuster comes with it, which is handy. Okay, and you can see there's lots of oil on that blade there. We'll just get rid of all that. Be mindful, the blade hasn't been honed to a final sharpness yet. However, it's still plenty sharp, so please be careful of that edge. Again, we'll do the adjuster. And then there's lots of oil on the bed of the plane. So again, we'll just take our cloth and wipe up that excess oil. All right, and then the last step is we're going to undo this knob completely. So we're going to unthread it, put that over there, and then you'll see you have a lever here that can be removed. And then the bottom of the toe pops right off. So we're going to just wipe any oil again off of the brass parts. And then same thing in here. I'll wipe all of this down. Get it nice and clean. On the surface where the knob rests, there's a bit of oil on there. And then if we flip over the sole in this area here that's been machined, you're also going to have a little bit of oil. Now, we're going to end up replacing some of this oil with something that we know is a little bit more light duty, which is what we're looking for in the plane. Now that you have it completely disassembled and all of the oil is removed, we can carry on to the next step. All right, so the next step is that we're going to take a look anywhere where you see a machine surface adjacent to another machine surface. All of these areas here can be sharp because at the factory they don't necessarily deburr these surfaces, and so there could be little burrs or little bumps on here that you want to get rid of. Even on a premium plane, I like to do this step because I find that if you accidentally bump an adjacent surface like this with a piece of metal that's sitting on the bench, sometimes it'll raise a burr, and then you'll end up seeing a little mark in your work, and that's not a good thing. So the way I do this is I use a mill file. This one just has the tang knocked out of it so that I can use it without a handle. But basically what I'm going to do is instead of running the file this way, which is a very aggressive cut, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the file 90 degrees to the direction I'm going in, and that's going to give us a much finer cut. And it's going to peel off little curly cues of steel. And you just want to run that over a couple of times and then just feel with your fingers, right? I can feel that there's a little bit of a spot right here. So I'm just going to work that a little bit, and then that's feeling good. The other place that you tend to get little burrs is on corners. And so if you can remove a little bit of the corner, right? Just smooth that over a little bit. That way it's not a sharp spot that is going to get a ding. And then we can do it on this side as well. Okay, this technique is referred to as draw filing. And so basically it gives you a much smoother surface and is a lot less aggressive because you're turning the cutting action to the side, which makes it a much smoother operation. Okay, again, look back here where you've got some corners as well. Sometimes you got to get creative about how you're using the file. But basically work all those over. If you find that you haven't done a particularly great job at keeping it nice and smooth, if you did go in this direction and made it a little bit rough, you can just use some 300 or more sandpaper just on your thumb and just give it 1 or 2 passes on the edges. That's not going to do anything to the sole of the plane. It's not going to do any damage. All it's doing is just easing our edges a little bit so that we don't have anything hitting where we don't want it to. All right, so next let's have a little conversation about sharpening. So these blades are M2 steel. They sharpen very well using pretty much any system that you might have, whether that's oil stones, water stones, diamonds. I personally use a Tormek, and all of those techniques work really well with this steel. Something to keep in mind is that with any plane blade, you're going to want to make sure that the back of the iron is flat, because really all sharp is 2 flat, highly polished surfaces coming together at an edge. So you want your back to be flat, and then when you address your bevel, you can do that as a single bevel, or you can choose to do a double bevel or a micro bevel. Either one will work, but essentially the blade comes in pretty good shape right out of the factory. You just need to do some final tuning to get it all up and running. I recommend finishing off at around 8,000 grit, which is also equivalent to approximately 0.5 microns if you're looking at that particular scale. If you go to that level, you shouldn't need to go any further, and that will give you really nice blades. A well-tuned plane is a joy to use and should make beautiful thin shavings when demanded. Enjoy your new Melbourne Tool Company plane.